Hi there, my name's Melanie. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm going to give you guys a tour today of one of my favorite local antique malls, especially some displays that I think are perfect for the summer. And we're starting off here with my friend Linda. The name of her business is Vintage Stash if you want to look that up on her social media. But just pay attention to how in all of these different little boxes and bowls, Linda has filler. She has multiple kind of levels of her display, and it's all color coordinated with the red, white, and blue right now. Now that sign is, of course, absolutely fantastic, but I also want to point out over here on the side, these old Johnson & Johnson first aid kits. Look at how much cuter they are when she has a couple of them and they're displayed together like this. It makes a whole collection. I'm noticing in her space and in spaces throughout the mall a lot of blue and white. I think blue and white is really always been popular. It's pretty timeless, but I think it is really having a moment again this summer, and it does seem to be selling well for Linda and everyone else. Tucked into this right side corner of her booth, she has a different vignette, and I think those plates are also really fun for the summer. It kind of makes you think about hanging out at the lake and going fishing. She's got some pretty vintage tins, a little bit more blue and white tucked into this cabinet back here. Just every inch of her space has a treasure that someone can look at. But I really love the peg hooks and how she has used them to display all this vintage silver plate right here. Now this is her second space that's right next door, and I want you to notice again just all of her different shelving that she has and her different heights and levels of display, as well as, again, there are tucked into every little bowl, every container, there are more items to dig and look through. For example, in here, these are vintage cake toppers that she found and packaged up in some clear cellophane. She has some old garden gloves and garden tools in this toolbox here. Linda really is the master of just layering her displays and her vignettes. I really love the way that she has displayed these silver plate trays here, that each tray has a couple of items displayed on it. It just adds a little bit more visual interest instead of just kind of a stack of silver plate. I thought that was very clever. And tucked away in this corner is a primitive shelf with a lot of pretty pastel pottery pieces on it. And she has a couple honey pots, things again that kind of feel spring and summery. And I like how she is kind of grouping all of her items together. She doesn't just have one or two little saucers there, but she has a whole bunch of them. And those glasses back there are Mr. Peanut glasses. I've never seen them before, and they're adorable. Right across the aisle is another booth that is equally as gorgeous, but very different in style. It's obviously more open. It's not quite as full as Linda's, but it still really works. And I want you to kind of pay attention to the repeated colors. This vendor is using green and white and blue, and how she's gathered together all of these different little vintage kitchen implements with the green handles, and she's got them displayed together. That's just a really cute idea. and how she's using this chair and this gate to stack on top of this old cabinet to add height. I also thought it was really beautiful, kind of as the centerpiece display, that she's got this pretty polished vintage silver plate in these glass containers. They just kind of shined in the light. They really drew my attention in. I think one of the biggest things that helps this space feel so warm and inviting is the lamps and the other lighting that is there. I'm going to be adding lighting into my space, and I think it's going to really make a big difference as far as helping this space feel warm for customers. Now here's another pretty display that I spotted, and it's again completely different than the other two. I wouldn't necessarily think of like a bubblegum pink color for this dresser, but I think paired with the gold and the green and a little bit of the orange, it makes for a really kind of fun display, and it still feels just appropriate for the summer. So I love that kind of unique color combination. And I think it's just a great example to share that everything doesn't have to be quite so matchy-matchy, but that you can pull together still a colorful space and have it make sense and be visually appealing. I want to also show you this small booth here that I think is still really killing it with their display and making the most of every inch that they have. Again, they have some lighting going across that kind of helps their booth stand out, and this fantastic kind of old primitive chippy green paint cabinet in the back that is kind of the anchor of their red, white, and blue display. Filled with, of course, some beautiful blue willow, blue and white dishes, some vintage Americana items, and then I thought this kind of strawberry pottery canister jar was just adorable. I hadn't seen it before, and the tag said that it was a piece made by a local jam company, but what a cute piece to have in for the summer. So she has some really beautiful chinoiserie plates here, a variety of very nice pieces. And then back here at the bottom, there's tucked away this kind of set of nesting bowls that I have never seen before. Here they are, those blue and white nesting bowls. It was $120 for the set, but aren't they pretty with their scalloped edges? I just think that whole display right there works really well together in this adorable antique teddy bear that honestly I was tempted to grab for myself. Again, on the whole, I think she just really maximizes the small space that she has and has a lot of really, really unique and interesting items in her booth. Here was another vendor display that I wanted to highlight. She had this coat rack tucked back in the corner, and it was filled with all of these vintage kitchen aprons. I think sometimes when you find something and you find one or two of them, it can be hard to figure out a good way to display items, but if you have a whole bunch of items and you display them all together, then it gives people an opportunity to kind of sit here and look, to pick through them and to find the one that they really want. So I love that she had all of those hanging up there together. And then she's kind of repeated the same idea over here in these old file drawers with all of these old vintage pictures. Showing here another very pretty red, white, and blue themed display that it was the front of this booth space. I love how she uses the baskets and the stool to kind of add different height levels to the display. There's plenty of little trinkets to look through, and this stuff isn't necessarily like patriotic themed or summer themed, but with the colors, she's really creating that patriotic and summer feel with the items. So remember, you can use stuff that you already have if it's in kind of particular colors of the summertime to create that coastal vibe or that 4th of July vibe. You don't have to go out and buy all new stuff just to have a fun and effective holiday display. This booth in the back was one that I think is kind of new to the store. And again, I think they've just done a great job maximizing their space. I love also their little peg hanger that they have here and how they have these little small creamers and milk pitchers. I am going to be on the hunt for something like this to hang small items like that from in my own booth space. And again, I know I've said it before in this video, but I want to point it out again. I think the lamps in this space make all the difference. It just creates kind of a warm glow and really wants to draw you into this booth to come look around. And how fantastic is this painted red hutch that she's got filled with the blue and white and more white dishes. This whole display was just really adorable to look through. And I'm going to show you a little bit up close, like just take a look at all of the different filler. So she's got these kind of red, white, and blue napkins kind of down here in this container as well. She's got like fabric kind of laying on the edge of the shelves to kind of add a little bit of color. There's some fabric tucked inside that gravy boat right there. And she's stitched these little fabric stars. There's one, a little more fabric right there. All of that are just these little filler elements that she has tucked through all these things that go a long way in kind of creating just interest, visual interest, and also adding to the colors of this vignette. So taking away from the red, white, and blue, we're going to go back to kind of this clean white space. Primarily white. There's a little bit of green in here. Again, she's got a lamp in each corner that's kind of shining up and creating light back there. But look at all the different height variation that she has here on this table and the way that she's got the chairs stacked up. I really liked that little picture right there. It was just adorable. I think overall she's done a fantastic job with her display. It's not too crowded, but there's plenty to look through. So over here in the corner is that other light, which just keeps it from being this kind of black hole back there. I think that's really smart. And again, how she is using greenery in her staging, I continue to think that's a great thing to have in your booth. If you need a resource for where you can get wholesale greenery, I have a video for that I'll link up above. So one thing that happens when I just kind of wander and look at displays like this is it helps motivate me to work on my own. I just feel inspired to go play in my own space, to really try and up my own display game and create that wow factor. So I hope you guys are getting the same feeling, just as you're looking at these displays, that it's kind of making you want to go just make your own booth look as fantastic as these. So let me introduce you to the ladies from Whippoorwill Quilts. It is a pair of twin sisters. They are lovely, and this is their space here. It for sure has a very primitive feel to it, which is my vibe. I love it. But I think they've just done a great job with maximizing their space, and I love how they have that quilt hung there down on that end wall. That's just a really major wow factor. But I want to highlight, take a look at this cubby and how every little cubby hole is filled with just some little treasure. They've got some inkwells, a lot of little mini creamers. I think this just makes a fun display, and it gives people a reason to come into their booth and look closer. One thing I really appreciate about their space is that everything is for sale. Every little shelf, every little hook, every single basket, everything is available for sale. Their display pieces, their containers. I think that's just great, and I think that really keeps their space appealing for customers, because sometimes a customer wants to display something exactly how you have it displayed. And maybe if you don't sell the rack or the shelf, then they're not quite sure what to do with the items that are there. So, and of course they have their own red, white, and blue. They have done some selective markdowns in their space, not marking down the whole space, but by putting these little dots on tags, which I think is a great idea, a lot better than just kind of blanket marking down your entire space. But cute collection of enamelware pieces. And then I want to point out this rack. I'm going to assume that they built this for their quilts. It's made out of a pair of old ladders. I just think it's adorable, and it does a great job displaying their quilts. And then our last and very summery booth space here is right up at the front of the store. This is a vendor. Her business name is called Something Else NWA. And the space is really kind of anchored by this very punchy cobalt blue that's been painted on this piece. And then I love that white terrarium that's filled with all the different little elements. She's got some flags hanging up, but then just a lot of a variety of things, a variety of artwork, a variety of home decor items, but then accented it with just these little pops of red, white, and blue all the way through to kind of help give it that really summery vibe. Okay, I really love these old rotary phones displayed together like this on these shelves. When you have just one item like this, it's not as compelling as when you have several and they can all be displayed together. I thought that was a really creative display. I appreciate you guys coming along with me today. I hope that you enjoyed this tour and seeing all this great vintage summer eye candy. As always, if you want more help with your booth or with booth tips, head over to my main website, lostandfounddecor.com. You can find a ton more resources there.